RPN, the Roddenberry Podcast Network.
This episode of Mission Log is sponsored by the official Star Trek Discovery Starships Collection. All new starships in a larger size format and officially authorized by CBS Studios. Subscribe today and receive the USS Shenzhou for only $9.95 with free shipping. For details, visit eaglemoss.com/Discovery Starships.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 277. Move Along Home.
Welcome into Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray. Each week, we watch an episode of Star Trek, analyzing moves, figuring out angles, and moving along to the end to figure out whether an episode works overall.
This week, Move Along Home, the one where Sisko and the senior staff go missing. But it's all fun and games to Quark. I've got trivia coming up in a bit, but first, a word from Eagle Moss, the official Star Trek Discovery Starships Collection. Officially authorized by CBS Studios, the official Star Trek Discovery Starships Collection is available only from Eagle Moss Collections and deals exclusively with Discovery. It's right there in the title, John, the Star Trek Discovery Starships Collection, you say. Oh, see, good. I was not reading along. So
there you go. Yeah. This special collection features brand new ship concepts and designs from the first season of CBS's Star Trek Discovery. Maybe you've heard of it, John.
I'm familiar.
Each has gone through extensive reference study and has been reproduced under the supervision of Star Trek expert Ben Robinson for accuracy and detail, making sure it is accurate and detailed just the way the ships in Star Trek Discovery were.
I ask you, what would be the good of having one without the other?
I know, right?
Why would you want accuracy and not detail? Why would you want detail without accuracy? I don't want that.
Can it be both accurate and vague? I think not.
So the first thing you may notice upon receiving your first ship, other than the accuracy and detail, that first ship, the USS Shenzhou, NCC 1227, there's a detail for you, is the larger size. It's almost 8 inches from the front of the saucer to the rear of the nacelles. All the ships in this collection are in this larger scale, made of die-cast metal and ABS materials, and hand-painted with reference to the actual CG models used in production. Each ship also comes with a display base, yes, plus a collector's magazine featuring behind-the-scenes info, original design sketches, and a breakdown of technology used on board. The first ship in the collection, the aforementioned USS Shenzhou NCC 1227, is available to subscribers for only $9.95 with free shipping at eaglemoss.com/Discovery Starships.
Additional models, including the iconic USS Discovery NCC 1031, the Corella NCC 1255, and the reimagined Klingon Bird of Prey will then ship monthly at an exclusive 20% discount off the standard retail price, and they also come in with free shipping. Subscribers are also entitled to free gifts worth over $100 and may cancel their subscriptions at any time. Full details can be found at eaglemoss.com/Discovery Starships.
Now, fans who would like to purchase their favorite ships individually may do so either online at shop.eaglemoss.com or at their local comic book shop for the regular price of $54.95 each. But again, to subscribe, go to eaglemoss.com/Discovery Starships. And a huge thanks, as always, to Eagle Moss for sponsoring this week's show.
Here's a really cool thing about those ships, by the way.
Go ahead, name it.
When your dad asks with disdain, wasn't it just last week that you were playing with models of starships?
Mm-hmm.
You can say, yes.
Yes.
That's it. It's fine. You don't have to... There's no need to feel bad about that. Hey, John's got trivia coming up in just a moment, but first I'm going to let you know how to get in touch with us. Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you would like to leave us a voicemail, we would love to hear your voice. 323-522-5641 is the phone number to call. 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including discovered documents, is at missionlogpodcast.com. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log. Say, Mr. Champion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm here for you, Ken.
Wasn't it just last week that you were doing Star Trek trivia?
I did that years ago when I was a kid.
Try years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but you're back at it, and you're still at it, and now it's time for more of that. Tell you what, while you're doing that, you just go ahead.
Okay, all right. You can go play with starships if you want, but I'll be doing the trivia right now.
No, play with starships. No, dude, that was so like 5 minutes ago. I'm on to something else. You go ahead.
Okay. Trivia for today's episode, Move Along Home. The episode was written by Michael Piller. Now, he had his own bit of inspiration here. One of the coolest TV series ever, The Prisoner. In that show's episode, Checkmate, number 6, Patrick McGowan is forced into a chess game using people as game pieces.
That's probably enough of that.
What you got going there, Ken?
I was just playing a little game while you were doing that.
Oh, okay, good.
I was doing the accompaniment while you were doing
it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah. You were playing, and I was bored, so I started playing.
Nice. All right. Well, I hope you didn't miss that good bit about The Prisoner, because that show was rad.
Dude, I was busy on percussion. I'll go back and listen later. Don't worry.
Okay, very good. The teleplay for today's episode is by a trio, Frederick Rappaport and Lisa Rich and Gene Kerrigan Fauci. Now, Frederick had racked up a number of writing and producing credits before this, his first of only 2 contributions to Deep Space Nine, but he and Ira Stephen Bear are friends and continue to work together on later projects like the 4400, along with some other very familiar names, Robert Hewitt Wolf and Renee Echeverria, to name a couple. This episode is Lisa Rich's first Trek gig, but we had mentioned her already on our show. She wrote Liaisons for Next Gen, which aired in September of 1993. Move Along Home aired in February of that year. Now, I find that an interesting connection since there are some thematic similarities between the two, and she will have one more story credit on Deep Space Nine, rounding out that group. Similar story for Gene Kerrigan Fauci. She, like Lisa, worked on this, Liaisons for Next Gen, and then one more Deep Space Nine coming toward the end of season 1.
Now, hang on. And for people who don't remember, by which I mean me.
Oh, okay.
Liaisons.
Okay, so picture a delegation of ambassadors on the Enterprise, but then Picard is whisked away. He is missing, and he finds himself on a crashed ship with a mysterious woman.
That is so not ringing a bell. Oh, my goodness.
No, wow.
How long has it been? Gee whiz.
Not that long. But it turns out that the woman is not really a woman in a crashed ship. She is actually a simulation set up by this race that they are having first contact with. So
still nothing. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Dude.
Wow.
I know. Did I like it?
I know that we found things to like in it.
Okay. Oh, well then there are themes, aren't there? Anyway. Go right ahead. My apologies.
All right. Working title for today's episode was Sore Losers. And there's a lot in the draft that didn't make it into the final version, mostly due to budget. For one thing, the set pieces were conceived as a much more horror nightmare sort of look. Rappaport said that he liked the architectural work of the Spanish architect Anton Gaudi. Look at his buildings like Casa Batlló, where you see his Art Nouveau inspired but way creepier designs. Rappaport had a different ending. He had more kind of action in there where you really ratcheted up the stakes. Now, the name Chula, as the game here, it is a mashup of Chutes and Ladders.
Nice.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. So we lose Bashir for part of this episode, and in real life, he wasn't needed on set. So he was shooting his cameo for Next Gen, Birthright Part 1. And Terry Farrell said she really wished it was her. That was actually originally conceived for Dax, but she had to stick around for this episode. Bashir did not, so he got to go do Birthright Part 1. And this episode is Emmy nominated for Best Hairstyling in a Series. It was directed by David Carson. We're coming up on the end of his run for Star Trek. The last episode of his that we discussed was Dax, and he has just one more Deep Space Nine to go, and then it's on to the feature film Star Trek Generations, and that's it. That's the end of the road for Carson's contributions to the franchise. Now, out of our regular cast, let us this week shine the spotlight on Cirroc Lofton. Cirroc was born in L.A. and started his professional acting career at the age of 14. That would be in the movie Beethoven. And only had a few other professional credits before he landed this gig on DS9 as a series regular. That's a really big deal for any actor, but especially a young actor just starting out. Now, right after this, he was a regular on another show, The Hoop Life, and made a handful of guest appearances into adulthood, even appearing in a couple of Star Trek fan films. But more recently, he has turned his attention to the restaurant world. He opened Café Cirroc in Culver City, and when that closed, opened Sarah the Wine Bar just down the street. So if you're looking for an Italian-influenced menu and good wine, well, that's where I'll be. Now let's talk about our guest stars. We welcome back James Lashley as Lieutenant George Primmin. I'm glad that we are establishing a newcomer on the show. Sorry, what's that? We will never see him again. Yes, we will never see him again. And
that's too bad because his story arc was just there.
It was, yeah.
It was just right there.
It was so right there.
Yeah, and now he's just disappearing. Not unlike, half the cast of this week's show.
And on the alien side, we have Joel Brooks as Fallow, and he is a constantly working character actor, and he's much more recognizable without the wig and the blue makeup on his forehead. He's been everywhere from sitcoms to soap operas to guest roles on major shows like this one, and even some feature films. He had recurring roles on 6 Feet Under, Phil of the Future, and My Sister Sam, as well as the TV version of Private Benjamin. Genre credits include Twilight Zone, the one from the 80s, and Babylon 5.
Alamarain. Count to 4. Alamarain. Then 3 more. Alamarain. If you can't see Alamarain, you will come with me. Second Shap.
Prologue. Sisko's keyed up about a couple of things. First, his son Jake is spending too much time with Nog, doing who knows what and learning who knows what. Benjamin and Jake are going to have a serious talk. Tomorrow. First, Commander Sisko has to deal with thing number 2 that's got him keyed up. First contact with the Wadi, a race from the Gamma Quadrant led by a fellow named Fallow. On the DS9 side, it's dress uniforms, introduction to senior staff, a bit of pomp and circumstance, or it would be if it weren't for an interruption by Fallow. Take us to your games. Specifically, take us to Quark's. Act 1. Quark is not super happy about having his bar overrun. Do these Wadi even have money? I mean, they're eating, drinking, being merry, but can they pay? Quark goes to find out with what are they able to wager. Sticks? No. Disgusting tasting drinks? No. Precious gems? Get these people some drinks. 6 hours later, the Wadi are winning and winning and winning at the Dabo table. Quark tries to close the game down, but the Wadi want to keep playing. So Quark rigs the game, though Fallow spots the cheat. You like our gemstone, says Fallow, with more than a hint of menace. You will have a chance to win more. In a new game. An honest game. With that, he begins setting up a game of his own. Chula. And he sets up Quark's players, 4 different figures, each about the size of a standard chess piece. But what Quark doesn't know is each piece represents a member of DS9 senior staff. Bashir, Dax, Kira, and Sisko. And what the 4 don't know, they are now in Fallow's game. Act 2. I say they don't know they're in Fallow's game. The 4 officers don't even know they're together at first, though they do bump into each other in short order. Sisko also encounters Fallow. He explains nothing, just laughs, telling Sisko he's on Shap 2 and encouraging him to move along home. The 4 officers decide to split up to figure out what's happening. They'll use their comm badges and tricorders to keep in touch. Now, we don't know how much time has passed, though it must have been a bit. Jake stops by Odo's office to ask if Odo has seen Commander Sisko. They were supposed to have some talk this morning. Now Jake can't find his dad anywhere. The station's computer says he isn't even on DS9. Odo tells Jake to move along out of his office. When he finds the commander, he'll let Jake know. Not surprisingly, the computer tells Odo the same thing it told Jake, that Benjamin is not on DS9, though there's no info about when he left nor how. Checking in at Ops, the hapless Starfleet security officer Primin says none of the senior staff showed up for work this morning. He figures they were just spent after last night's reception for the Wadi. They're not sleeping it off, genius. I think they're missing. Start looking for them. Now. Of course, it's not just the 4 officers playing Chula. Quark is playing as well. For him, though, it's just an intricate game board with pieces that mean nothing. And he doesn't know the rules. Fallow says he's required to learn as he plays. Betting as little as he can, Quark rolls and is told that his pieces will meet the Chandra. Difficult for some, according to Fallow, though others will consider it mere child's play. Wherever the senior officers are, they come across a little girl, playing a sort of triangular hopscotch, making hand gestures, and repeating an annoying rhyme. She won't answer any questions, just hopping around, chanting her chat, waving her hands, doing her thing. Having had enough, Kira tries to cross the room to the next door and gets repelled by a force field halfway through. But Bashir has figured it out. The kid is hopping on certain tiles in a certain order. He follows in her footsteps and also gets repelled by a force field halfway through. But Dax really figures it out. They have to hop like the kid and say the annoying rhyme as they go. Dax tries it and succeeds. The other 3 do the same, and that moves them on to 3rd Shap. Back on DS9, that's a pile of gemstones for Quark. Act 3. 3rd Shap, and Fallow tells Quark to choose his path the players will take. The shorter the length, the higher the winnings, though the peril is higher as well. And should he lose all 4 players, he'll lose all he's won. Quark starts talking to Fallow about putting in a couple of Chula tables in the bar when Odo comes in. 4 senior staff members, Sisko, Kira, Dax, and Bashir, are missing. And Quark puts 2 and 2 together. Or really 4 and 4. Somehow the pieces on the Chula board are the 4 missing officers. Fallow leans on Quark to choose the path of the 4 pieces. Quark chooses the safer one, then rolls. In the game, Dax realizes that they're in a game. Not that she's any closer to understanding the rules or how to win. Passing through a door, what? Party time in Chula Land. The Wadi in the room are standing around, drinking, eating, laughing. Then all of a sudden the room fills with gas. The Wadi keep drinking and laughing, while the DS9 officers are coughing and choking. Bashir grabs a drink, and that does it. The drinks being enjoyed by the Wadi are a sort of antidote. Bottoms up, and the 4 players are fine, and on to Shap 4. Back on Deep Space Nine, that's more winnings for Quark, and downright worry from Odo. Act 4. Odo has Primin scanning the Wadi ship for signs of human life or something else anomalous. On sensors, they find something they can't explain. Odo has Primin beam him to the location on the ship. What Odo finds is strange. A blinding light that when Odo approaches it, beams him to Quark's. Fallow knows what Odo's found, but urges he and Quark not to stop the game. If they do, he says they will lose their players. Anyway, Quark says he knows what he's doing, though for Odo's sake, he'll choose the safer path for the players. Safe or not, Quark makes an unfortunate roll of the dice. In the game, a sort of energy being is chasing Sisko, Kira, Dax, and Bashir. Scanning each of them, it chooses Bashir, who simply disappears. In Quark's, Fallow takes the piece that represented Bashir off the table. Next move, he says. When Odo asks about the piece, Fallow becomes more insistent. Next move. Choose your path. Double their peril. Double your winnings. And this makes sense to Quark. He's a gambler. He plays the odds. The shorter path means a quicker way to safety for the stranded officers. Well, for 2 of them anyway. Quark's next role calls for him to sacrifice one so that two may live. Act 5. He can't do it. He doesn't even know which piece is who. But Fallow warns if he does not sacrifice one, all three will be lost. And Quark loses it, begging and pleading and crying. He's sorry, truly. He's learned his lesson. He'll never cheat again. But he cannot choose. Fallow agrees, though not in the way Quark hoped. He will simply program the board to choose instead. In the game, the board has given way to a series of caves and chasms, and it's apparently chosen Dax for the sacrifice. The caves are experiencing quakes, and Dax hurts her leg. She won't be able to go on. Of course, Sisko and Kira won't leave her, not even when they come to the only way out, a leap that Sisko can make and Kira can make, but Dax can't make with a bum leg. Dax tells Sisko and Kira to go on without her, but they won't. Sisko orders Kira to jump without them, but she won't. The three stick together, looking for another way out. But the quakes get worse, and the three fall into a chasm and land in Quark's, along with Dr. Bashir. Quark and Odo are amazed that the four are all right, but Fallow says, of course they're all right. It's only a game. Sisko is livid with Fallow and the Wadi, though Odo says it was Quark's cheating at Dabo that got them into this trouble in the first place. But all Quark can think about is getting a Chula table for his bar. He chases after the departing Wadi delegation as we hit the end.
Can I just say right away that you read the shop out of that? You did.
Thank you very much. I feel like I was fourth shop in that read. Not as good as sixth, but certainly not as childish as first.
Nope, nobody starts at the first shop.
Well, children start at the first shop. So
but
they're kids. They don't know any better.
Yeah. Speaking of kids,
I don't know what's wrong with these kids today.
all that Sisko and Jake talk about girls. I feel like the writers said, like, hey, let's start something that we just don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's interesting that they have chosen to put a child on this show as like a functioning member of the cast. Because if there's one thing Star Trek has never been able to write well,
it's children.
It's children.
Yeah.
And it's the relationship between children and parents, with the exception of maybe a couple of episodes between Beverly and Wes. And I literally mean 2 episodes between Beverly and Wes. I mean, kids aren't anything they've been able to do. And so, like, at the start of this episode, it's like, well, my father was never really a fan of mine.
Right.
So how's Ben going to be with Jake? I mean, it's just, and I'm sure. I mean, we got 7 seasons. I'm sure this relationship is going to mature. Knock wood,
we
cross
know.
your fingers.
Know
we don't know. I don't know about this one. The stuff about Bashir, I know. I assume that this is going to get better. And I will also say,
I'm just trying to preemptively cut off a handful of emails and tweets. But yeah, but yes,
that is both understandable, Mr. Champion, and commendable. But no problem. What I'm saying though is I really hope that gets better. And good job on their part to go ahead. Yeah, no, we can totally write kids this time.
Yeah, right. And then I thought it was funny that Odo knows too. So, that little bit where Jake goes up to him and is like, I was, looking for my father, and there was the Bajorans coming in, and Odo's like, because you stand around and look at the Bajoran girls.
Yeah.
Like Odo.
Which I love. Honestly, that was a better mentor.
It was. It totally was.
Moment than anything that's happened so far between Jake and Benjamin. It was like, and he played it well, too. I mean, see.
He did.
Because a lot of times we couldn't tell, were kids being poorly directed? Were they just poorly written? That was actually a very cute scene. I mean, and he played that smile perfectly. That, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
No, wait, I'm cool. Okay, I'm still a tiny bit embarrassed. It was a nice scene between the two of them.
It was delightful. Speaking of immature people on board, Bashir, not showing up in his dress uniform. First of all, replicate one.
Apparently not.
No, apparently you can't. And second, the Wadi won't know the difference. What if they think that he looks the best? What if they size up right away? There's Dax, there's Cisco, and they're like, and then this guy who showed up in the nice uniform, and you others showed up in your pajamas.
Right. You in the dress, take off the pants. What is it, a dress or is it pants? Which one is it? He might say. Skants, you might say. Those would be mighty fine looking skants if you weren't wearing the pants under them.
Oh, getting ideas.
I gotta say though, so right, I assume there is no replicator since he's just like stressing about the fact that he really thought he packed it. He thought he packed his dress uniform. He was sure he did. Doesn't he know a tailor on board?
Well, okay.
Doesn't he know a clothier? Doesn't he know just like a plain, simple like guy who makes clothes on Deep Space Nine?
It's hilarious that you would mention that because there is actually an unfilmed scene.
Really?
In which he would have said something to Dax about, oh, well, I'm thinking about having Garrick make one for me. And she'd be like, really? Like a Cardassian tailor making a Starfleet uniform? I don't know about that.
Well, that'd be a pretty cool idea, although it's going to be embarrassing when they find out that Garrick actually doesn't know anything about how to be a tailor because he is a spy.
Yeah, and it's bugged. The uniform is bugged. Yeah.
That's true. Everywhere he goes, oh, I see you were up late at Quark's last night. How do you see that? I don't.
I just a guess.
What did I say? Yeah. So, I got to say, games in the Gamma Quadrant, seriously, no joke, right? Because we've seen now 2 games from the Gamma Quadrant. One is Captive Pursuit, where they're hunting a guy,
right,
who has been raised for the hunt. Although they'll kill other people if they get in the way of the hunt, right, or stun them anyway. Yeah. And then Move Along Home. It's a fun game, Chula, where people who don't know they're playing think they're playing, and they think the whole time they're going to die.
Right. Yes.
The Gamma Quadrant is like, I mean, they're like, they're, well, I guess level 20. As far with a +1 for a holy, am I really going to die in this game?
Right. Yeah. Well, see, and you still know so little about Dabo. Somebody might die in that.
That's true, because those spiky things are spiky.
Yeah.
Whatever
exactly.
With the pit showing or something. I can't remember exactly what he said already, but yeah, because I figured when they have double pits showing or whatever he said, that's double your winnings. And it turns out, no, 2 pits in the exact same little pocket. That's bad, which is amazing to me because I would think, 1 in one in another, that would be bad. It's sort of like if you pulled the arm on a one-arm bandit there out in Vegas, and if nothing matched, you win. but if things match, they're like, oh, that sucks. Put more quarters in because you owe us now because it really looked like you won, but you didn't.
It's the Ferengi game. They might literally change it every day.
They probably do.
Today's Dabo is this. It's like again, like Fizbin. We've mentioned it. Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of Ferengi, I had to look up. I very often watch the show with subtitles on to make sure I get the names of objects or characters in there at least once on our watch through. And I swear, I thought that Cisco said that he was eating Ferengi low carb beans.
Yes.
No, it was actually low carb beans. Low carb beans. Just one word, but I thought he was like, I'm doing a low carb thing now. I thought that was because he did mention how he'd lost a little weight. Putting on that uniform. That's
fantastic. So the Ferengi are really interested in profit, gambling, and snacks, but healthy snacks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you looked it up, and it turns out that's not the case.
You're right. Yeah. They're still not good for you. I'm pretty sure.
Surprising. Oh well.
Yeah. I think here's the thing. Through 7 seasons of Next Gen, the sexiest thing that we've seen is Riker in a jazz club meeting Minuet. Otherwise, it's just at home with the women playing a lute. And we go to DS9. DS9's a little more rough and tumble, and Quark has his hollow suites. And we just sort of like wink and nod about the hollow suites. Mm-hmm. I think this is the first time anybody has actually equated it with sex.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if that will, again, be explicitly said the way they did it here. But, many more holosuite adventures to come, I'm sure. Primin, our old friend Primin, who just has a long and healthy and adventurous career ahead of him somewhere other than Deep Space Nine. He that line that's so weird, Constable. Oh no, that was just odd. Like, were they trying to say that he was just super at ease with Odo now after their bonding in the last episode?
It's too bad because he was actually a good character in the last episode.
Yeah, I agree. And it was a good way to mix it up.
Yeah, I didn't like him for the first half of it, but you're not supposed to for the first half of it, I don't think. But he came around to actually being a really good, really decent character. And he was a bit like one long pratfall in this episode. Like every time he was on, it's just like, oh, something stupid is about to happen. Just wait.
Yeah. Now, I get the feeling, Ken, that you and I may have one or two things to say in summary of this episode, how we felt about it, what we thought about it. That'll all come. We'll get there in time. We're just on like the second Shap right now of our show. We'll hit Shap 4 in a little bit. But something that I like in this episode is how nonsensical and surreal it all is. Like think back to TOS, Spectre of the Gun, and those totally impressionistic sets, and you just see the kind of the area that they're in just kind of fall away. Stuff like that is really cool. But then this is Star Trek, and I started to have questions. Mm-hmm. Like were our characters transported there? Did they have some sort of transponder that correlated to the game pieces? I know this is one of those episodes where I can't have those questions because it is designed to be surreal and nonsensical, but I had those questions. Like especially when Fallow shows up with them in the game.
Right.
Like he's there playing with Quark, but then he's also in that room in the game doing that weird clap that they do and drinking the Chanya so they don't get killed by the gas.
See, I know you're saying that we can't have answers to those, but I think we actually kind of do. I assume
we have a little bit of an answer because Odo, is like zapped back to one.
Well, you also heard Bremen say, though, that the only thing that can make that kind of energy signature is a transporter, but a transporter would be momentary. It sounds like they've got, basically they're running them in a transporter buffer the whole time to be sort of dropped back out, whenever Fallow decides when he hits his control pad, which is, I assume, how he was appearing as well. I don't think he's ever actually in the game. I think he's just sort of got these pre-programmed, here's how I'm going to be creepy with people.
I kind of wondered that, and I kind of wondered, do the game pieces correspond to their movements? Sorry, remember that old electronic football thing with the magnets under the under the platform, and you just turn it on and it move the little metal game pieces around on the football field? That's how I pictured what was happening with the game pieces on the board. Even though we never saw them move, I just thought that there had to be some correlation to the movement of those pieces and what was happening to the people in the game. But again, giving it entirely too much thought.
Alamarain. Count to 4. Alamarain. Then 3 more. Alamarain. If you can't see Alamarain, you will come with me. Third Shap.
So we're on to the next Shap now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shap 3.
All right, because at the end of Shap 2, I meant to say, Alamarain! Because you're supposed to when you move on from Shap to Shap. See, here's what's wrong with Dabo, okay?
Okay.
I've only seen one episode with Chula.
Yeah.
And I understand it better than Dabo. I know that Alamarain means you're moving on to the next thing. That's they learned that when they were following the little girl, and then every time that they were moving from Shap to Shap in Quarks, Fallow would holler, holla, Alamarain! He would yell, and we would move on to the next round. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next round. What is up with Sisko's disdain of Nog?
Oh, man. See, that's just so weird here. I feel like we're supposed to fill in the blanks somehow. The audience is supposed to fill in the blanks, but really, look, all we've seen them do is, they were goofing off in that scene where they released the little mites into Quartz Bar, and that was just
the amazing Technicolor fleas.
Yes, yeah, right.
Yeah,
and Nog doesn't want to go to school, but I also feel like Sisko has not had a sit down with Nog.
Right.
This is all based on assumption here, and it's a little weird.
Racist. sorry. It's a little
okay,
racist.
maybe that's the word that I was looking for.
Here's the thing. I mean, first of all, we don't know that Nog didn't want to go to school. We know that Rom didn't want Nog to go to school, but he went ahead and relented. I will tell you honestly, and it's weird to talk about racism when you're talking about Sisko. It's weird to talk about racism when you're talking about a black guy. I remember when I was a kid, down in Vicksburg, Mississippi, I was for vacation, which is the loosest, most awful. Look, nothing against Vicksburg, okay? If anybody's listening in Vicksburg, it's a fine city. I had to go down there when I was 8 and hang out with 80-year-olds that I technically wasn't even related to. Okay.
Whoa.
So it was never a lot of fun for me. And then a couple of kids showed up in the yard and wanted to play. And so I went out and played with those kids, and I came back in and was told by the 80-year-old, who you got to know, an 80-year-old Vicksburg guy, going to be the most open-minded person you've ever met. He suggested I not get mixed up with those kids because those kids, I forgot to mention this part, were black. And my mother, God bless her, my mother says, well, Tommy, I don't know that he's getting mixed up with anybody. I think he was out playing with other kids.
Good for her.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And it's like something that, 40 years later, literally 40 years later, it still sticks with me as a shining and defining moment of who she was and of who he was as well. But then let's go forward a bit. There are, okay, now the first time we met Nog, he had just pulled a B&E. Okay, we do know that. And then the one time that we know that Sisko knows that Jake and Nog were hanging out, it was because of the amazing Technicolor fleas. But, I mean, he also needs to understand that there's absolutely nothing else to do on the ship. And despite his lying to Jake in the first episode, as you pointed out about how many kids there would be, there is in fact one. That one is his friend. And at some point, Sisko needs to get over whatever it is, because all he's going to do, honestly, is make Jake like Nog more.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, there will be more of this to come. The folks don't need to send us letters about it. But where we are right now in the development of this relationship and these characters, the thing that bothers me about it is, yes, everything that you have pointed out, and it's that the Ferengis so far, they made this change from the feral animals that were in that first episode when we met them in Next Gen, and now they're sort of slightly comedic, a little oily, a little untrustworthy, but we're sort of going into this with the assumption that they're all the same. That every Ferengi is exactly the same, and the same means not trustworthy, and a good kid from Starfleet shouldn't be hanging out with any of them. It's...
In fairness, Quark was in league with murderers last week.
Yeah, well, yes.
A murderer last week, and then they hired some other people. But again, that's Quark. That's not Nog. I mean, it's... And here's the thing. Yes, as John points out, I mean, we know that there are things coming that we don't yet know, or that in some cases we're pretending to not yet know. The way we're watching it right now is this is episode 9 of a new series. I'll tell you honestly, I don't know what Ben Sisko's relationship is going to be with Nog going forward. What I will say is either it's xenophobic or it's lazy writing. One of the two. Like, okay, what do we know about Jake? Well, Jake's friends with Nog. Okay, well, we need Sisko to be frustrated with Jake, so what's he going to be frustrated with Jake about? Well, the one thing we know is that he's friends with Nog. Okay, so that's what he'll be frustrated about. And action, and start writing. It's just, I mean, the whole thing just feels, I mean, it's either here we go again, like eye-rolling, or it's, or worse.
The difficulty is this, that, for 20 years, you had the Klingons as the mustache-twirling alien other of Star Trek. When you needed an enemy, we're just going to write in the Klingons. But then you get up to Next Gen, and you get up to a character like Worf and the complexity of Klingon culture that they built into that, started exploring in that. And we get to take a step back and say, wow, there's something here about our enemies not being the monolithic other that we painted them to be. But because it's also storytelling on a week-to-week episodic TV show, we also need to have this other that we can just sort of throw all these negative attributes at and make it stick. So for now, it's going to be the Ferengi. And I feel like that's where we are. If we need something to say, like, who's the one that's getting into trouble, who's the one that's shady, and we need to have Odo keep an eye on. Well, that character is going to be a Ferengi, and pretty much every Ferengi around them also going to be untrustworthy. And whatever we need them to be from week to week.
See, even if you're going to say that about Ferengi adults, though, there's something wrong, it seems to me, with Benjamin being that way about a child, right? Which I know he's 14, although Ben actually says that Nog is older than Jake, and we've established that Jake is 14. So... I don't know. Maybe it's just the teen angst. Maybe it's just I don't know what you kids are up to when I'm not around, I mean, maybe it has nothing to do with the fact that Nog is who Nog is. Maybe if it were any other 16-year-old who had, sort of a checkered past, let's say, hanging out with a 14-year-old, I mean, maybe Ben would be that way about, anybody. But, the only things we know about Nog is he's gotten into a little bit of trouble and he's a Ferengi.
Yeah.
And so
right.
It's hard not to read it as something more, something less Starfleet than you would expect.
Yeah. No, and I feel like what we've gotten out of the show so far can only land us at that. That's where it has dumped us with these characters.
So far.
So far, yeah. So I have a question about Quark. In that scene where he's begging, you think he's being sincere?
I don't know, but I love the comedic moment in that scene when Fallow and Odo look at each other and then sort of look over the table. That was very well done. Was he being sincere? I don't know. He said later that he would have said anything to end it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, see, I that scene was really well played, and the reaction was really well played, and then I'm glad we got a follow up at the end of the show, where we got to sort of readdress it a little bit. But the whole thing was set up to make you wonder, was he really that concerned about his friends Sisko, Dax, Kira, and Bashir? I mean, how much time have they spent around each other, really? Other than Quark being all infatuated with Dax when she comes in for her morning Raktajino. That's about it.
Sisko was sitting there for 6 hours talking to Quark, apparently.
He was in there for 6 hours. I don't know if they were chatting for 6 hours. And if they were, what were they chatting about? I hate your nephew. Your nephew needs to stay away from my kid. Right. So I don't know. I like that scene was so well played, and Armin Shimmerman just nailed it. And I like that it left me with a question. I think that was one of the better things in this episode.
I kind of feel like, I honestly don't really want to think too much about whether or not he meant it, because what I then go to is probably not. And I think I don't want to think that because I want to like Quark, because he's going to be one of our lead characters, even though he was just in league with a murderer last week.
Right.
He wanted not to pick. He wanted not to choose. He begged, he pleaded. And our assumption is that he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want one of them to die. But I think really what he might have been doing was covering his own backside, because he cries and cries and cries and says, please don't make me. And then Fallow's like, fine, we'll let the board do it. And Quark doesn't cry anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's now fine. He doesn't have to choose. So when they come out and they find out, oh yeah, well, Dax died, because they all think they're going to die. And, everybody in the game, well, everybody in Quark's who's not Wadi thinks they're going to die. He doesn't want to be the one to have chosen who was going to die. Once he finds out, well, okay, so you don't have to choose. You see, that's my feeling is he's probably just covering his own behind. But I don't want to think that, because I want to like Quark.
That's why I like that scene, though, is because it challenges us in that way.
So you know what I found challenging in this?
What's that?
Ideas of fate and free will. Yeah. That's what I took from this episode most. I mean, and the problem is it doesn't answer any questions, just as nothing ever answered those questions when I was concerned about such things.
Yeah. Right.
Now they're just sort of like fun thought exercises. Back in the day, though, when I went someplace on Sunday morning, besides rolling over to the other pillow, I never used to understand exactly how your name's in the book, but you got to be good. Okay, well, which is it?
Yeah.
Is my name in the book, or do I have to, go through hoops? Because if my name's in the book, doesn't really matter what I do. And if my name's not in the book, doesn't really matter what I do. The courses that Cisco and crew are taking are determined by chance, a roll of the dice, yet they have to perform actions and figure out strategies to get through it.
Yeah.
Or do they? I mean, I guess they do, because they roll the dice and they're going to meet the Chandra, right? And then in the game, they have to figure out how to get past the Chandra, or do they actually have to figure out how to get past the Chandra, because was that going to happen anyway? Because, Fallow is rolling the dice. Fallow, has set up the board. Quark is rolling the dice, but they're in there having to do all the stuff that they have to do anyway. They're sweating, they're toiling, and whether they do well or do poorly, the game's going to end the way the game's going to end. And they're either going to, well, as far as they know, they're going to live or die. Now, of course, it turns out they're going to live, but we didn't know that at the time, and they certainly didn't know that at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of goes back to my question before about what actually is the interaction between the game and the people, because they're in there with not only the ability to communicate with each other and take action in the rooms that they're in, but they also have their technology with them. They're sort of learning the game as they go. So does their learning affect what's happening back on the game board in any way, shape, or form? Or is what's happening on the game board just making the challenges that much more difficult? But Quark and Fallow aren't actually watching it happen. Quark has no idea that those game pieces are those people until much later in the episode, until much later in the game. So, I absolutely. I think there's one of the more interesting questions here about this episode. Is that do their actions actually have any influence on their ability to survive the game, as opposed to the quote unquote gods who are throwing the dice? We don't know. Well,
you've got to figure their actions do affect it somehow, because they had to figure out how to get past the Chandra, and we watched them figure out how to get past the Chandra. Unless this is just a parable being told for us, except that the four of them seem to remember everything that happened when they come out. They don't talk about it long, but they're like, oh, you mean we weren't really in danger? Okay, so then they must have been conscious of the fact that something was going on. They weren't just being held in a transporter buffer. So if they were conscious that something was going on and they were conscious of the danger, then I assume that they remember everything else. And if they remember everything else, then they must have actually had to try to get past the Chandra. So then what are they doing while the game's being played? Are they just sitting there do you think these pieces that aren't moving are going to get past that other piece that's not moving, but in my head they're actually moving, and in whatever nether region the game takes place in, they're also... Right. And then they're going to die anyway, or not. It doesn't matter how they do.
Well, it seemed to me that with the roll of the dice... Right. Then that would determine just how difficult the next level was to get through. Like maybe, Quark rolls like a 1 or something. I'm just going to assume that he's got a 20-sided.
There are 3 dice. You can't roll a 1.
No, but I'm going to assume he's got a 20-sided die at some point.
There were only 3 pyramid dice. That was it. I was paying attention to this game because I want to try to figure out how these games work. When you said that Chula is short for Chutes and Ladders, honestly, I think my understanding of the game went up a whole lot more.
I'm so glad it did, because I have zero interest.
Really? Oh, there's so many neat pieces, and there's dice, and there's a little interactive bit there with the screen. I'd love to play this game if we.
You get yourself from shap to shap, and you tell me how you did it, and I'll be over here doing something else.
I got all the shaps.
Alamarain. Count to 4. Alamarain. Then 3 more. Alamarain. If you can't see Alamarain, you will come with me. Shap number 4.
Alamarain! I did it wrong again. I was supposed to do it at the end of the last shap, I believe, on the way to this one. Mm-hmm. I'm not a great Chula player yet.
No.
But I will tell you, I used to rule at Chutes and Ladders, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to have this game down. Yeah, come Vegas, come see me, because I can, we'll run the Chula tables, assuming we can find one, in a more discerning casino. Okay. Not one of those nickel slots places, because it's a bit much for that. No. The episode is Move Along Home, and we have moved right along to the segment where we talk about the messages, morals, and meanings of the episode, and seeing whether or not we feel the episode holds up. And that's where I'll start, Mr. Champion, is in asking you, move along home, does this episode hold up as far as you're concerned?
Let's put in a little context first. I was very interested to read what other people's reactions to this episode might have been. Take your Ronald D. Moore. He had not come into the staff yet at this point in DS9, but he said he saw this episode and wondered if they had all lost their minds. And then you've got people on the production staff kind of split. Michael Piller, I was surprised to see that this one really was his idea, though he did not script it. And it seems like there were a lot of people who had ideas here that just didn't quite come to fruition. So there's a lot of mixed feelings on the production end. You know, people who loved it, people who hated it. You go to the 15th anniversary Star Trek convention in Vegas. Ken, I believe you were there. Yeah, as was I. However, we were not in whatever panel ranked episodes of Star Trek.
Right.
And I believe this one was ranked as, I might be wrong, but I believe this one was ranked as the worst episode of Deep Space Nine and ranked as something like the 8th or 9th worst episode of the entire franchise. So interesting to see that kind of fan opinion.
That's kind of encouraging, actually. If this is the worst episode of Deep Space Nine,
then we're over the hump.
That's kind of encouraging, yeah, because we got 7.5 or 6.5 more seasons.
Yeah,
All right.
So, So here's my thought. Like, I will cut this episode some slack in these ways. They tried to do something fun. They tried to do something with some action and danger for our lead characters. They tried to get in that Twilight Zone mind bleepery feel at the end. And they tried to create something very alien coming out of the Gamma Quadrant. So it just people who behave in ways we don't understand, we don't get that this is a test, that this is a game, it's a thing they do. These are all ideas that I appreciate when they're done well. And Armin is great in this. I'll give them that too. But there are a lot of problems. So, again, I don't feel like we really gained anything at the end of the day here. So last week I mentioned the problem with the puzzle episodes. And it's not that those are inherently bad. It's just that they get tedious if we don't get anything out of the characters along the way. There are a handful of good scenes here, a handful of good lines. I was kind of intrigued with the idea of Dax, was she being serious, saying that she would leave Sisko behind. I think there's a discussion to be had there that you could read it as she was. You could read it as she wasn't. And I think that's a good, meaty part of a scene. So there's a handful of good stuff here, but that doesn't necessarily add up to a good episode. Also, the design just leaves something to be desired. So yes, I want Star Trek to break out of routine and show us new alien cultures, but this looked like it was put together by someone who didn't really know good science fiction, but rather had watched just like a handful of episodes of Buck Rogers and decided they knew how to do sci-fi production design. You know, we'll just make it look weird. We'll just make it look alien. So from a production point of view, it fails in a lot of ways. I feel like the story, the script, just the design overall. And I feel like we get some good acting moments, particularly out of Armin, but the others aren't really given a lot to do. I enjoyed some of the stuff between Quark and Primin.
Odo and Primin.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Odo and Primin. My bad. Yeah, but that's about it. So I have to say that this one is a fail. How about you? Does this hold up for you?
Not for a minute. There are things that I like. I think the guy who played Fallow, he's great. It was weird to me to see like how many things he's been in, and yet I don't know his name. I have never known his name. And I've already forgotten his name now. And I feel terrible about that because seriously...
Joel Brooks, the one and only Joel Brooks?
Yeah, because you and I were talking about it. If you watched TV in the 70s, you saw Joel Brooks. I mean, you just did. He is that guy who was in that thing that time, except he was in all of those things. countless times. And then, of course, he did have the recurring roles on a couple of shows as well, including most recently, I think it was, or relatively recently, some soap opera. Wasn't The Guiding Light, though, so I lost interest almost immediately. There are little comedic moments with him. And as you said, Armin is great in this episode. And there are things about that I like. When Sisko is doing all the pomp and circumstance, and Joel Brooks is yes. Take us to your games. I mean, it's cute and it's understated and it's not laugh out loud funny. And he doesn't come in, over the top in the way like a Harry Mudd might have, or a more flamboyant character might have. Right. There were things in the show that reminded me of TOS episodes, but none of the ones I liked. Like it reminded me of I Mud, and it reminded me of Shore Leave. Shore Leave. I mean, both of those episodes gave us a lot of stuff to think about and a lot of stuff to talk about. But anytime somebody has to hopscotch through something, or do some stupid dance or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah. It depends. I mean, I'm assuming that there is a way to write that would be menacing or that would be whatever. But yeah, this just reminded me of things I didn't like. Yeah. There's no reason for Quark to put 4 and 4 together the way he does. There's no reason for him to think that the pieces on the board are the missing officers based on just the one thing. That should have taken longer for him to realize. It seems to me, because we've got no indication that the Wadi are that powerful that they can actually transport people to another dimension and turn them into pieces on a game board. And as you said, literally nobody learns anything in this episode. I mean, last week you and I disagreed on whether or not anybody learned anything. This week I'm right there with you. Yeah. Jake's dad still hates Jake's one and only friend. Every character seems to be written on cardboard here. I mean, Sisko, honestly, is written for maximum condescension to everyone in this episode. Yeah, he's condescending to Jake. He's condescending to the doctor, Bashir. He's not condescending to. He's condescending to Kira actually when she's like, "Hey, this isn't what I signed up for," and he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to deal." Right? Mm-hmm. Dax is the only one to whom he's not condescending. Kira is written for maximum irritability all the way through. Primin has gone from being tough as nails to an idiot, and Bashir is still the same level of derp he always is. So, I mean, there's there are little comedic moments, like the thing where Jake is embarrassed talking to Odo about girls, as opposed to being defensive the way he is with his father. I mean, it's a cute look. It's a cute look off this cute kid who's been given nothing to do so far. Or almost nothing to do so far. There are really great, I mean, as you pointed out, there are wonderful acting moments. And, a special mention to them because there's no script. I mean, there's nothing written for them to do.
I love Odo kind of taunting Primin with, is that against Starfleet regulation? Is it also against Starfleet regulation to push a few buttons? Just because it shows that Odo has a sense of humor about himself in that, or about the moment, because Odo's never been anything but tough. Mm-hmm. But this is a way of him to be tough, but also kind of use irony to his advantage. That was a good moment. It was a good scene for him. Doesn't change the character. Doesn't mean that he learned anything. Doesn't mean that Primin necessarily learned anything. He just took the order and did the thing. But yes, all these nice little moments in the show that
don't add up
sadly
to a
don't save the show.
Thing, right?
That don't save the show. Yeah.
They'd be great when they do their Touch of Grey episode. Touch of Grey, Shades of Grey.
No, Shades of Grey. Yeah,
those moments would be great when they do their Shades of Grey episode, which I'm crossing my fingers doesn't happen because I don't know if you heard. But a few years ago, some Star Trek fans voted this the worst episode of Deep Space Nine.
Whoa!
Which I'm assuming means we don't get a clip show.
Okay.
Unless they think this episode was so bad that even a clip show would be worth
Worse
it.
than a clip show.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. What about messages? Were there any?
Are they messages that the characters actually learn from? Not necessarily. The journey that the four are going on, Dax, Kira, Sisko, and Bashir, you're only as strong as your weakest link. There's a lot of those kind of very classic, no, you go on without me. No, we're not leaving without you. It's a team working together to help the weakest to become part of the stronger team. That's all well and good.
Wait, I think you're using "you're only as strong as your weakest link" incorrectly, though, aren't you?
No. I mean, in...
Because that means they're no good. Because, I mean...
No. If you've got somebody who is falling behind...
Right.
All right. If they become the weakest link at that point, all right, so
right.
then you lift them up, you pull them up so that you can actually carry on with the thing. You don't all just stop and like, okay, well... We'll wait here with you, and we'll hang out.
See, to me, I think it's more like that thing with the sticks, right? Where you can break one stick by itself, but when you put a bundle of sticks together, you can't break them.
I mean, that's nice. I like that. That's part of our national seal. I would also say don't cheat. I would also, but Quark does not necessarily learn from the don't cheat message. Gets him into a world of trouble. Right. But I don't think he's going to learn from it. Also, there's no such thing as a hot streak. Quark is not familiar with the gambler's fallacy. All those moments where he's telling Odo, like, but look, if I just roll one more time and I just bet this, then everything will be fine. No, you have no control over outcome. There is no way for you to game the system in that way because, it's not his game and he can't cheat at it. I wish that there were some interesting messages here at the end of the day, like I don't know about taking games too seriously or something like that, but there's just not. And like I said, the messages that I pointed out just aren't things that have any lasting effect on anybody. Any that I overlooked or anything that jumps out at you?
No. I don't think so.
All right.
I was personally interested in the ideas of fate and free will, but they're not actually addressed here.
Yeah.
Which is something I was thinking about while I was watching it, however many times I watched it. Mm-hmm. No, there's no chance for, Sisko's being a jerk to his son, about his one friend. So we don't learn anything from that. Quark, the one thing I do like, I like the fact that Quark he is not suddenly a saint at the end of this. At the end of it, he's thinking, okay, well, that was scary, but also kind of exhilarating, and I could make money off it. So let me go see if I can. Right? That's kind of fun, I guess. But if it had turned out that there had actually been real danger, there might have been a question there. If Quark had been held to play the game at gunpoint, then there might have been a message there. Because, there is a potential of saying, don't mess with people you don't know, right? Because Quark just cheats Fallow. He just straight up cheats him. And so then Fallow puts Quark through something, maybe as a way to punish him, maybe as a way to teach him a lesson. But as we pointed out, Quark doesn't actually learn that lesson, and there's no real danger for anybody. So, no, it just felt like 48 minutes times however many times I watched it that I'm not going to get back. Although, luckily it was salvaged, I think, with some of those wonderful acting moments that we talked about.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer, Rod Roddenberry. Check out the Roddenberry Podcast Network at podcast.roddenberry.com. There you will find Mission Log Live, Women at Warp, Priority One, and the Trek Files. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog. For more exciting Star Trek podcasts, check out Trek FM, that's trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, the Nagus.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. As you believe, so shall you do. The higher, the fewer. Double their peril, double your winnings. Fizbin. Dabo. Here is a look at my robot guts. The higher, the fewer? Alamarain.
Podcast.roddenberry.com. The Roddenberry Podcast Network.